and in today's video we are going to be talking about everything related to cardio. Basically every single thing you need to know about cardio, whether you asked or not. What is going on? Welcome to another video. If you are new here, welcome. If you're a returning subscriber, welcome back. And in today's video we are going to be talking about everything related to cardio. Basically every single thing you need to know about cardio, whether you asked or not. And the main reason I wanted to talk about this is because cardio seems like it's one of the most controversial subjects in the fitness industry. You'll hear everything ranging from you don't need to do an ounce of cardio at all. If you even do a little bit of cardio, you're going to lose all your gains, all the way to cardio should be the only thing you should be doing to lose fat. It should be the main thing that you focus on. And as we can see from the current gym population, most people have the idea that if they want to lose weight, if they want to lose fat, it's just a matter of going to the gym and hopping onto the first treadmill, the first elliptical, the first piece of cardio equipment they can find, and that's pretty much it, and then do that for months and years on end, and somehow they'll just lose fat. Meanwhile, you have on the other end people who are die-hard strength and muscle enthusiasts who say you shouldn't be doing an ounce of cardio because cardio is going to interfere with the muscle and strength building process, and that you should never touch cardio at all. And for most of us, we aren't die-hard cardio enthusiasts, or neither are we die-hard strength and muscle enthusiasts. Most of us just want to look a bit better, feel a bit better about our bodies, and we want to mix of both. We want to be strong and have a decent amount of muscle in our body to look good, to have muscle definition, to feel good in our body and to feel strong. But also we want to have all of the benefits that come with cardio as well. So I do understand that for someone like you, it can be frustrating to hear all of this conflicting information that's out there and not really know what's exactly correct or reliable. However, lucky for you, with my no nonsense, no bullshit, effective, efficient, and transparent approach to fitness, I'm going to tell you every single thing you need to know about cardio as it relates to weight loss and muscle building. So in this video, we are going to specifically talk about what is considered cardio, why should you do cardio, how much cardio you should be doing in relation to your goals, the types of cardio there are to choose from, the best forms of cardio, and again, this is going to depend on your goals, but there is a best, but it's not going to be the best one-size-fits-all for everyone. It's going to depend from person to person. And then, of course, combining cardio and lifting weights, can you actually do that? What are the benefits? What are the cons? And then, of course, we are going to address some common cardio myths. First off, we have to discuss what exactly is considered cardio, because you'll hear a lot of things like, oh, I'm just lifting weights. Is that enough cardio for me? Because technically I'm getting my heart rate up, so is that enough for all of the cardiovascular benefits? Or does cardio mean I have to go to the gym and hop on the first elliptical, treadmill, bike, or whatever piece of equipment that you can find, and then just do that for hours on end until I feel super tired, I feel super drained, and I feel super sweaty? So while yes, cardio can include all of the previous movements and exercises that I mentioned earlier, that's not it. It's not only limited to that. Cardio, under its vast umbrella term, includes many, many forms of movement. This is because if we go back to the root of the word cardio, it's actually short for cardiovascular, which when we're talking about your cardiovascular, it's mainly your cardiovascular system, which includes all of the organs in your body that help pump blood, transport oxygen, and transport carbon dioxide throughout your body. So your cardiovascular system is going to include your heart and your blood vessels and your lungs. So simply put, any form of exercise where it puts a specific demand on your cardiovascular system or your heart, your blood vessels, and your lungs, this is going to be considered a form of cardio regardless of what type of movement it is. However, there is a caveat to this. This doesn't mean that every single time you raise your heart rate that's considered cardio, because otherwise you'd get into great cardiovascular shape if you just went outside to shovel snow for like 2 minutes. Most of these sources I've found say that you need at least 10 to 20 minutes of sustained elevated heart rate in order to get any of the cardiovascular benefits of actually doing cardio. Which means when you hear the gym bros or gym enthusiasts say that weightlifting counts as cardio, so unless you're lifting weights for at least 10 to 20 minutes straight and keep your heart rate elevated, that's not considered cardio. And that's not to say that you don't get any cardiovascular benefits related to directly strength training, but for the purposes of actually increasing your cardiovascular capacity for overall health and overall endurance and performance, weightlifting isn't going to cut it. And I would also argue that if you are weightlifting, you shouldn't be weightlifting for the cardiovascular benefits, but rather you should be weightlifting for the actual weightlifting benefits, like improved muscle density, improved muscle mass, and improved strength levels, and increased functionality just because of the increased muscle mass and strength and all the other stuff that comes with it that comes as a result of lifting weights.
Lifting our huge triangular iron weights.
Alright, so now that we've addressed what is actually considered cardio, let's get into why should you do cardio? Because you'll have one camp of people say that, oh, if your goal is building muscle and strength, you shouldn't do any form of cardio because that's going to interfere with the muscle and strength building processes, and it's also going to burn a ton of calories. And so if you're trying to bulk up and you get big, you don't want to be burning too many calories. And then along these similar lines of that, you'll have people who are like, oh, why do I even need to do cardio? Isn't that only for fat loss? Like, I'm not trying to lose fat right now. I'm not trying to burn calories. And these are all kind of interconnected in a way, but we'll get into why you should be doing cardio regardless of your goals. And basically, my answer is this. You should be doing cardio regardless of your goals because, as I stated before, the purpose of cardio is in its name. It's to strengthen your cardiovascular system, which arguably I think it's the most important organ system in your body. Because if you think about the organs that we use every single day, what's included is your lungs, your heart, your blood vessels, and these things are constantly being active to keep your body alive, keep your bodily functioning well. So why shouldn't we be doing the form of exercise that best strengthens and improves the function of the organ system that is literally running every single day to keep us alive? And keep in mind that the stronger the system is, the more efficiently it'll run, and the more efficiently it'll run, that means the longer your body's hardware is gonna last and take you through life. And this means that you'll actually live a higher quality and higher quantity in terms of years of life.
I see this as an absolute win.
And I would even go so far as to say that if I only had to choose one mode of exercise to do for the rest of my life, I would pick cardio over weightlifting any other day. There, I said it.
Sounds controversial.
And don't get me wrong here, I'm not saying that weightlifting isn't important. Obviously, there are so many benefits to weightlifting, and I thoroughly enjoy lifting weights. But if I were somehow forced to only pick one to do for the rest of my life, I would choose cardio. But as you can see, we live in a world where you don't only have to choose one thing, so obviously I highly encourage you to do both when you can. And of course, some people watching this might be like,
and why would I do this?
And here's what I want you to think about. What is more important for keeping your body alive? Your cardiovascular system, which contains your heart, lungs, and blood vessels and all that, or your musculoskeletal system, which is basically your bones, muscles, tendons, and ligaments? I'm hoping you said the first one, or else this is going to be really awkward. And while yes, I do understand that it's cool to have big, round, voluptuous glutes, or an impressive, big bicep peak, if your heart's, lungs, and blood vessels were missing or just stopped working, you wouldn't live very long. On the other hand, you could have the flattest glutes in the world and you could have non-existent biceps, but if your cardiovascular system was functioning in tip-top shape, you would live a pretty long and quality life. So from the perspective of pure survival and pure necessity, cardio outweighs strength training by miles above. And while yes, cardio does burn calories, and it is a huge benefit to adding more cardio or adding more activity through your day, that shouldn't be the only benefit that you're focusing on.
So that means you want to burn 4,000 calories?
Which means that you shouldn't only be doing cardio as a means to lose fat. Because much like muscle mass and strength, cardiovascular fitness is the same. If you don't use it, you lose it. So for people who only focus on cardio during their dieting or their deficit phase, they might feel super fit and super well conditioned and super in shape, but as soon as they stop doing that cardio, as soon as they're like, okay, I'm done dieting, I'm not going to do cardio anymore until my next deficit phase, they might feel super out of shape and their cardiovascular system's actually deconditioning, and even doing the simplest task, they might feel out of breath because of that deconditioning effect. Simply put, on the whole, the fat loss benefits of doing cardio are vastly overrated, but the health and fitness benefits of doing cardio are vastly underrated. And later in this video, as you'll find out, cardio doesn't actually burn as many calories as you think it does. And by now, if I haven't convinced you to do cardio yet, here are some benefits that cardio can help with lifting for all of you die-hard strength and muscle building enthusiasts. An uncommon piece of knowledge is that when you improve your cardiovascular performance and your cardiovascular capacity, it can actually help your lifting performance. And this is because of the aerobic adaptations you get from cardio. And if you aren't quite familiar with that term, allow me to explain. When we're performing any form of exercise at all, we either rely on our anaerobic energy systems or the systems that don't require oxygen, or we rely on aerobic energy systems, which are the systems that do require oxygen. And I don't want to get into that too much, but in general, the anaerobic energy systems that we use are going to be used for things that require explosiveness, a quick burst of energy, and are short duration in nature. And with the aerobic energy systems, these are things that don't require a huge amount of energy, but we need to sustain that energy for longer periods of time. So for example, our anaerobic energy systems power things like jumping, sprinting, lifting weights. These are things that require a huge exertion of energy for a short period of time, whereas the aerobic energy systems are for things like a jog, a walk, basically anything that we need energy for a long period of time, even including at rest, because your body still burns energy, your body still uses energy and uses resources to stay alive, even though if you're not moving. So now that we know all that, let's tie that back together with cardio and as it relates to lifting weights. So while you're lifting weights, your anaerobic energy system is hard at work producing energy for you to complete that set. However, as soon as you're done with that set, your body actually has to switch over from that anaerobic energy system because it can't keep producing energy forever, and switches back to that aerobic energy system. And again, you don't have to be doing constant exercise for this aerobic energy system to be active. It's active when you are at rest, including when you are resting between sets. So with that in mind, some direct benefits that improving your cardio-based or your aerobic energy systems can help with lifting weights is that you might find that you need less recovery time in between sets. I know personally for me, I have found that I just need less time in between sets. I can feel like I can bounce back and recover quicker.
Or just bounce.
Also, when you improve your cardio or your aerobic energy systems, you actually allow your body to deliver more nutrients to your muscle. Because if you think about what actually brings nutrients from the food you eat, from the water you drink, and everything else that you consume, what actually brings that around your body? It's your heart pumping your blood. It's the blood that actually contains all of these nutrients. And then, of course, your lungs brings vital oxygen to your body to keep it running and to keep it alive. And then lastly, you can actually have improved muscle growth and performance as a result of strengthening your cardio. Because there seems to be an ongoing joke in the industry that anything over like 6 reps or 8 reps is cardio. And while some people might find that funny, I actually find that quite sad.
Sad. That's fucking sad.
Because if you can't do anything over 6 reps and you feel like you have to be out of breath as a result of that, that is not being a well-conditioned person. And by not going over a certain rep range, you lose out on all the benefits of doing higher rep work. And then on a similar note, another common question I get is, does cardio build muscle? Do I actually need to lift weights if I do cardio? Won't cardio be enough to build muscle? Can I get toned and build muscle tone while doing cardio? So this answer is going to be a little bit yes and a little bit no, and here's why. So the main driver of muscle growth is going to be progressive tension overload, or getting your muscles to experience enough tension that is greater than the amount it is able to handle now. And through that, your body's going to go through the necessary adaptations and eventually build muscle as a result of that. With this in mind, if you go from being completely sedentary or doing little to no activity to following a solid cardio routine of 2 to 3 times a week, you are in a sense experiencing progressive tension overload. This is because when you are at that previous level of your muscles not experiencing that much stimulus, to all of a sudden now you're doing cardio a few times a week, your muscles are getting a different stimulus. They're getting a higher need to adapt to. So as a result, you're going to build a little bit of muscle from doing cardio. However, if you just simply try to rely on cardio for building muscle, eventually your body's going to get to a point where it doesn't adapt to cardio anymore by building more muscle. It just adapts through strengthening your cardiovascular systems. But if you want bigger, more defined, or more toned muscles, you're going to have to take up weightlifting at a certain point. And this is exactly why I highly recommend just sticking to one thing for its own purpose. Stick to cardio for its cardiovascular benefits, and stick to weightlifting for its weightlifting benefits of improving strength and muscle. Alright, so now that I have thoroughly convinced you on why you should do cardio and why you should implement it into your routine right now, let's talk about how much cardio should you exactly be doing. And as a general recommendation for every single person, and this is according to a bunch of federations around the world, including the World Health Organization, the American Heart Association, the American College of Sports Medicine, and even the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, you should be getting at least 150 minutes of moderate intensity cardio per week. However, as I understand it, there are a ton of people not meeting this requirement, and obviously this recommendation right now is just not meeting people where they are at. And if this isn't working to get people adherent to a cardiovascular based program, then I don't think this recommendation is working well at all. So with that in mind, I'm not going to tell you that you need to get 150 minutes of cardio and that if you don't get it, somehow you're not healthy or not fit. And here's the thing I want you to keep in mind. Something is always better than nothing. If you go from doing 0 minutes of cardiovascular activity and then you go to 10 minutes, that's still better than nothing. Know that it is not an all or nothing thing. Like, you don't have to be doing 150 minutes of cardio, and if you don't hit 150 minutes, somehow that you failed your goal and that you're not getting all of these benefits, because you still are if you go from what you're currently doing now to increasing it even a little bit. An equivalent to this is like saying, okay, I need to save $1,000 for my vacation at the end of the year, and to do this, I'm 10 months away, I'm gonna try and save $100 a month. So let's say you're able to save $100 this month and then $100 the next month, and then on that third month, you fall short. You only get, let's say, $40. Does this mean that you are not getting all these benefits and that you're not currently working towards your total goal of saving $1,000 at the end of the year? Obviously not. You're still making progress, although not as much progress as you might have preferred to be making. You are still making progress nonetheless, and in the grand scheme of things, you are still much farther along than if you weren't saving in the first place. So this is what I want you to get through your head. Just because you aren't meeting these arbitrary requirements that other people or even you may have set for yourself does not mean you are a failure. If you are making some progress is always better than no progress. And then of course, even though this is a general recommendation, which means it should fit most people's guidelines, this doesn't mean that every single person has to do this, because some obvious things might be that some people just simply aren't ready to go from doing 15 minutes to 150 minutes per week. Some people may not be ready for moderate intensity right away just because they are deconditioned and they aren't super fit or super in shape. Some people just might not have 150 minutes to dedicate per week, and this could include like travel time to the gym or just simply the time to plan around this. And then lastly, some people might not be physically ready, if ever, to do 150 minutes per week. And know that all of this is fine. However, do I think that most people are able to get in 150 minutes per week eventually? Absolutely. But the main thing here is start with whatever you can and strive to improve over time from there. And this actually segues nicely because I do get a common question like, so what is moderate intensity anyway? How do I tell what intensity of cardio I'm doing? So now let's get into the different types of cardio. So while we can't get into all the nitty-gritty of the different heart rate zones you can do for different adaptations for your body, I don't want to get into that. I'm just going to keep it really simple. You have low intensity, moderate intensity, or high intensity. And a good way to keep track of this is just using the talk test. So while you are doing cardio at your sustained pace, you are in low intensity if you can comfortably hold a conversation. This is something like a casual walk at the shopping mall or walking with your friend on a trail where you can have a conversation the whole time and you don't really feel a lot of breath. You can feel like you can hold and have pretty much a regular sustained conversation while you're moving. Next is going to be moderate intensity. So this is, you're ramping up the intensity a little bit. You can still hold a conversation, but you're gonna have to take breaths in between your sentences. So this is, for example, maybe you're doing a brisk walk with a friend and you're talking with them, but you have to pause mid-sentence to take some breaths and before completing your sentence. And then anything above that is gonna be considered high intensity. So this is like you can barely speak or have a conversation. You might be able to utter 2 or 3 words, but you're gonna be panting, you're gonna be out of breath. All right, now let's talk about the best forms of cardio. Okay, to be honest with you, I kind of lied on this one. There really is no best form of cardio, because really the best form of cardio is the form of cardio that you enjoy the most and can stay consistent with. But with that said, most people don't like that answer. They want to be told exactly what to do. So I'm going to give you a list of what I think are the best forms of cardio. However, if you don't see your form of cardio on this list, this doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it or that I'm not recommending it, you don't do it, because we are different people. I enjoy one thing, you might enjoy something else. And also my goals are different from yours, and that is going to dictate a lot of the different types of cardio that you might or might not be doing. And also a big factor for that is what your goals are, because if your goal is to prepare for running a marathon, I'm not going to tell you to go swimming for your form of cardio to practice getting better for a marathon. Just like how if your goal is to build maximal muscle, I'm not going to tell you to go do hill sprints for your cardio sessions. And then if your goal was to lose 100 pounds, I'm not going to tell you to go jogging with a bunch of high impact on concrete, because that's going to be very hard on your joints if you're 100 pounds overweight. But generally, here are some of the few things that I look for when I prescribe cardio for my clients. Number one is going to be accessibility, and what I mean by this is, will someone need fancy equipment to do this, or can they do this with minimal to no equipment? So for example, if someone doesn't have access to actual gym facility with a bunch of cardio equipment, I'm not going to say go do elliptical or go do Stairmaster. Number two is going to be impact. How much impact will this form of exercise have on their overall body and joints and all that? Number three, calories burned. Especially if someone's main goal is fat loss, how many calories will this exercise burn per session relative to other modes? And lastly, if someone's goal is to maximize muscle growth, I'm going to consider how much interference is this form of cardio and exercise going to affect the muscle building process. So with all of these factors in mind, and also considering the fact that most of the people I work with just want to build muscle, they want to lose fat, they want to get fitter, and to improve their overall health and longevity, here are the top 4 pieces of cardio that I recommend. So number one, if you've been following me for a while, you already know what I'm going to say. It's walking. Walking is the simplest, easy, and most readily accessible form of exercise. Walking is also incredibly low impact, so it won't lead to any excessive joint wear and tear, and it also has a very low interference with the actual weight training and weight training adaptations. And funnily enough, a lot of people think of it as just walking and they don't treat it as your exercise, when in fact, this is a very good form of exercise if you're doing it correctly, if you're doing it at an adequate amount. In fact, it works so well that most of the clients I work with only do walking. Alright, exercise number 2 is going to be the elliptical. So the elliptical is also simple and easy to use. It's also very low impact, and the elliptical actually burns a ton of calories versus other modes of cardio, because you have to move your entire body versus something else like a bike where you're just sitting there and the only thing that is moving are your legs. And the only reason this is second to walking is that you actually need a piece of equipment for this. Number 3 is going to be swimming, and I chose this for similar reasons compared to the elliptical. Again, it's a full body movement, which means it burns a ton of calories, very low impact because you're basically floating in water and you're just moving through water. And it's third to elliptical because of the huge learning curve, especially if you're someone who doesn't know how to swim, or if you have limited access to a pool of water. And a big reason why it's in third place is because of its learning curve. Like versus someone just hopping on an elliptical, swimming actually takes time and practice. You actually have to learn the skill of swimming, and you have to get pretty good at it if you want to actually be proficient at swimming. And of course, there's even more limited equipment access. You need either a body of water, like a pool, or some sort of lake or something, and that can be hard to find for some people. And number 4 on the list is going to be cycling. It's simple, easy to use, low impact again. However, it's not as readily accessible. You need some sort of bike, either outdoor bike or indoor bike, and it doesn't burn that many calories because, again, like I said earlier, you're fixing pretty much your upper body to something, and the only thing that's moving are your legs. But all in all, again, this is my opinion on the top 4, and the absolute best form of cardio is the one that you enjoy and can stay consistent with. So just because I didn't say it on here does not mean that I discourage it or that I don't think it's a good form of cardio. Alright, now that we've covered all that, let's talk about combining cardio and lifting weights. Specifically, some common questions I get regarding combining cardio and weights are, should I do cardio or should I lift weights first? And the other question is, how much cardio and how much weightlifting sessions should I do to maintain a good balance of each? And again, I'm going to lead with this answer because it really is the truth. It depends. Because really there is no one-size-fits-all prescription, and there really is no one-size-fits-all answer, because it's going to depend on things like, what is the main goal that you want to achieve? What does your schedule look like? Are you able to fit in daily activity, or are you someone who likes to go to the gym on these specific days or likes to work out on these specific days and then take a complete rest day and go do something else? Another factor to consider is, how far do you want to excel in either training style? Like, are you someone who just really cares about building maximal strength and muscle and just wants to do cardio on the side for all of the minimum effective doses, all of the minimal benefits of doing that? Or are you someone who cares a little bit more about doing cardio? Like you really want to improve your cardiovascular performance. You don't really care all that much about building strength and muscle. That again, it's just something on the side that you want to do and reap all the minimal benefits. Or are you someone who wants a good balance of both, wants to kind of excel in cardio, but also kind of wants to excel in weight training? And then of course, lastly, how much stimulus is your body able to recover? Because each and every person, their ability to recover from the stimulus of cardio and weight training are going to slightly differ. So firstly, in a perfect or an ideal scenario, if you had the schedule to work out whenever you wanted and you had all the free time in the world, I would say to space out your cardio and weight sessions on different days. That way you're really able to get after your weight training sessions, or you're really able to get after your cardio sessions. But I do understand that for most of us, we don't live in a perfect world. We have schedules and lives to attend. So with that in mind, if you don't have an ideal or a perfect schedule to do all these things and to schedule things on different days, here's what I recommend. You should be doing the thing that you want to prioritize more first. This means that if your main goal is to build strength and muscle, you should be lifting weights first. However, if your goal is to maximize cardio performance, then you should be doing your cardio session first. This is because at the beginning of a workout, this is when you're going to be the most fresh physically and mentally. So it makes sense to do whatever mode of exercise that you want to focus on first, because you can give that more effort versus where it's later in the workout. That stuff, obviously, you're not going to have as much energy to focus on, so you should put that thing second. But if you're unsure on which one you want to focus on more, then I recommend starting with the one that's going to be the most intensive for your body. And in most cases, weightlifting, if done correctly, that's going to be the thing that's most fatiguing and most demanding.
Go, Matt. Go, Matt. There you go, Matt.
Again, this is because you're most fresh to push yourself at a higher intensity. And then with cardio, you can still maintain that moderate to low intensity and really keep your heart rate going, and you don't really have to do like high intensity cardio afterward. And we will touch on this in a moment, but just to make sure that we get all of our bases covered, cardio itself does not directly interfere with building strength or muscle if you're doing it in appropriate amounts, if you're eating enough, if you are making sure that your body is properly recovering. You can balance both and still excel at both. Alright, so now with all that said, let's go ahead and address some common cardio related myths. So number one is that cardio will kill your gains, bro.
How conditioning could be killing your gains.
So this is something that's commonly preached by your average gym bro, but with pretty much zero context to support it. Especially if you're doing something like walking or some sort of light to moderate intensity cardio with a very low impact rating, it's not going to magically melt all your muscles off. Otherwise, the human race, along with our ancestors, would have died off a long time ago if we lost a lot of muscle just doing a little bit of extra walking or some sort of cardio. All in all, cardio won't kill your gains unless you're doing too much of it too frequently, you're not eating enough calories, and you're not managing your recovery properly in between your training sessions. So stop fearing cardio. Do your cardio even if your main goal is building muscle. It's good for you, it's good for your heart, and I'm sure your 70-year-old self will thank you. Another myth is cardio will burn less calories over time because you get efficient at it. So this one comes from ignorance and misunderstanding more than anything. And really, here's the thing. Will your body get more efficient at cardio as you get better and fitter? Absolutely. Like any other skill, your body, when it gets more efficient at something, it's going to burn less calories because of it. So technically, yes, while you will burn fewer calories when you are, say, running a mile when you first get started to 6 months later down the road, as you get more efficient, as you get fitter, as you get better at running, you're going to burn less calories because your body has become more efficient at it. However, rarely, if ever, do we go from running that same mile we did 6 months ago, and we're not going to do that same exact exercise 6 months later. Most of us were like, hey, we're feeling better, we're feeling fitter, we're feeling stronger, we're feeling healthier. I'm going to push myself to go a little bit harder. And as a result of this, you actually burn a little bit more calories than last time. And if you can keep this same concept of progressive overload, like I said earlier, and slowly increase the stimulus that your body gets, then your body adapts, it actually burns more calories as a result. And so you can actually become a fat burning and a calorie burning machine if you slowly push yourself from session to session, month to month, year to year. You can actually burn more calories as your body gets more efficient at cardio, not the other way around. Next myth, you should do cardio fasted or on an empty stomach because it burns more fat. And this one, it kind of has a little bit of truth to it. Yes, you technically burn more fat because when you're fasted, you don't have food in your system. Your body has to get energy from somewhere for that cardio. So obviously, it's going to pull a little bit from your fat stores because you barely have any food in your system. However, granted, if you're eating the same number of calories, it's not going to affect anything at all. Because here's the thing that drives body fat loss is being in a calorie deficit, and it all boils down to calories in and calories out. So granted, say if you're eating 2,000 calories, let's say you ate breakfast as a part of that 2,000 calories, and if you didn't eat breakfast and you skipped breakfast, you did cardio fasted, and you still ate 2,000 calories at the end of the day, you're going to see the same amount of fat loss whether you do fasted cardio or not. This is because, again, it boils down to calories in and calories out.
In this house, we obey the laws of thermodynamics.
Think of this like driving with a gallon of gas. It doesn't matter if you use that entire gallon at night. It doesn't matter if you use that entire gallon in the morning. It's all going to come out the same because you're giving your body the same amount of fuel. That cardio session, assuming that you're burning the same number of calories, you're doing that same exact cardio session, it's going to come out to the same. Next myth, HIIT is better for fat loss. And this myth has been perpetuated for as long as I can remember. And the main reasoning behind it that people like to argue for is that HIIT has the afterburn or the epoch effect. And some people even go so far as to say that it burns thousands of calories as a result of doing HIIT versus steady state cardio, when in reality, this isn't the case. In fact, most of the data says that the afterburn or the epoch effect only accounts for an extra 6 to 15% of the total calories burned per session. We're not talking about the entire day, we're talking about these sessions. So how many calories you burned during that session of cardio. Which means that for your average HIIT session cardio that burns 150 to 150, maybe 200 at the most, you're only burning an extra 6 to 22 to even 30 calories for that session, which is literally not even that much. That is like 3 almonds. And some people might say, oh, what if I do a longer HIIT session? Well, if you're doing a true all-out HIIT session, you're not supposed to be able to go for very long. And if you're dragging out a cardio session, guess what you're doing? You're basically doing steady state cardio for a longer period of time. There's no way to cheat the system. And something else that a lot of people don't talk about is that the afterburn or the epoch effect actually applies to all forms of cardio. Yes, this even means low intensity or moderate intensity cardio. Because the main reason why this afterburn effect occurs is because in an elevated heart rate, in an elevated state for your body, it has to bring it down to baseline. So even if you're doing low or moderate intensity cardio, you're still bringing your body up to a certain level of demand that it needs to meet, and then eventually it has to come down as you come back to a resting period. And especially with low intensity or moderate intensity exercises, you can actually go longer, which means you'll actually be able to burn more calories during the session and as a result of the afterburn or epoch effect. So really, if your goal is doing cardio for the purposes of fat loss, there really is no reason to do HIIT. In fact, the main reason why HIIT was invented was to improve athletic performance for athletes. Next myth, cardio is all you need to do to lose weight. And honestly, from what I can see of this myth online, a lot of people are starting to believe in strength training and are starting to look towards that for the answer for their fat loss goals rather than going straight to cardio. However, on the other hand, when I step into the average commercial gym, I still see a ton of people on the cardio equipment. A lot of people, they check in and the first thing they go to is straight to the cardio equipment. So I still think that there still needs to be some work to be done. And to be honest, I can't blame them. When you go around hearing people say, hey, calories in, calories out, you need to focus on burning calories, your first thought might be going to do cardio, and that totally makes sense. I get that. However, for most people with a lot of excess fat on their body, it's likely because they lack activity and combine that with a poor nutrition of over-consuming calories. It's not just one thing or the other. So the solution to losing fat, to losing weight, isn't only burning calories. Although you can do that, it's not going to be efficient at trying to get you into the calorie deficit that you need to lose body fat. Because let's be honest, it is much more efficient, and don't confuse this with easy, because I'm not saying this is easy. It's totally more efficient to say, I'm not going to have those snacks, or I'm not going to have those high calorie treats. I'm going to cut 500 calories from my diet versus saying, I'm going to go and work out and burn an extra 500 calories off. It takes much less work and time to eat fewer calories than it does to burn extra calories. Secondly, doing lots of cardio has been shown to increase hunger levels significantly, which obviously doesn't help because then if you just eat all those calories back, then you're pretty much at a sum zero and you don't end up in a calorie deficit and you don't end up seeing the progress or results that you want. And lastly, with this point, a lot of people who only do cardio and who only focus on losing weight and fat end up looking skinny fat, and that's not quite the desirable look that a lot of people that I've worked with want. They want a lean, toned, and muscular physique, and strength training is going to help with that, not so much cardio and not so much just focusing on fat loss. Which segues nicely into the next point, is that cardio is the best way to tone. Because here's the thing about getting toned. It's not just about losing fat. It's also about building muscle mass along with losing overall body fat. And if we think about this from what cardio does, cardio just burns extra calories. It can get you in that calorie deficit. It can get you to lose fat. But like I said, it doesn't build a ton of muscle. You might build a little bit of muscle when you first get started, but that level of muscle gain is going to level off very quickly, and you're going to soon have to take on some sort of resistance training if you want to continue to build muscle, especially to the degree if you want to get muscle tone. And in order to build muscle mass effectively and efficiently, you need to be following some sort of proper strength training program. Not just focusing on cardio, not just doing kickbacks on the Stairmaster. If you want to build muscle mass, if you want to build muscle tone, if you want muscle definition, just cardio is not going to cut it. Final myth is that make sure you're doing cardio in the elusive fat burning zone. And so if we really want to talk about outdated and old information, this is it. And truthfully, I spent most of my first fitness years believing this. I felt like I had to do cardio in this exact fat burning, magical fat burning zone, and if somehow just doing it in that zone is going to magically melt all of my fat away, when in fact it didn't. And like I said, the main driver of fat loss is going to be through a calorie deficit. However, I'm glad I got myself educated and I pretty much learned that this myth is complete bullshit. And the more I learned about this, I can actually see why this myth was perpetuated. It's based loosely on the exercise intensity versus what ratio of carbs and fats is that exercise intensity going to burn. And the model here is pretty accurate in that when you do higher intensity forms of exercise, you are going to burn more carbs as a result of that for an energy source, whereas if you do lower intensity forms of exercise, you're going to burn more fat as a result of that. But keep in mind, this is for dietary carbs and dietary fats, not exactly body fat, where body fat is just simply an energy source that can always be converted into energy for your body to use. But the only way to do this is if you're in an energy or a calorie deficit, regardless of your fat or carb intake. If you're in a calorie deficit, you can be only eating fat or you can only be eating carbs, and you will lose weight as a result of that because your body has to pull energy from somewhere when it's in an energy deficit state. So while yes, I agree that heart rate zone is still important to an extent, especially if you want to get certain adaptations from it to improve your fitness levels, but in terms of fat loss, it doesn't matter what heart rate zone you're in. Anyways, that about covers everything I wanted to cover. I know that was a lot of information, so let's go ahead and do a final wrap up of everything, and hopefully at the end of this video now, you have some few key takeaways that you can take home to actually apply to your life and to your fitness journey. So firstly, what is cardio? Cardio is considered any type of exercise that elevates your heart rate for an extended period of time for at least 10 minutes long or 10 minutes straight. Number two, cardio is so important and underrated for overall health and wellness. It is not just a tool for fat loss and burning calories. Thirdly, although too much cardio can impact lifting performance, doing some cardio can actually aid lifting performance. Fourthly, as a general rule, 150 minutes of moderate intensity cardio is recommended for anyone looking to get the benefits of improved cardiovascular health. However, don't feel the pressure of having to meet these standards right away. Start and work with what you can do now and improve from there. Next, a simple way to differentiate between cardio intensities. Low, you're able to hold a conversation while performing exercise. Moderate, you're able to hold a conversation, but you have to take breaths in between sentences. And high, you're not really able to hold a real conversation at all. If anything, you're able to say probably 2, 3, or it's few words at a time. Next, there is no best form of cardio. The best form of cardio is the one that you can stay consistent with and the one you enjoy the most, because if you can't stick to something, it doesn't matter how good it is if you're not able to follow through and stay consistent and actually keep up with that routine. But with that being said, my top recommendation for my goals and most of my clients that I work with are walking, elliptical, swimming, and biking. And these are my top four for the following reasons of accessibility, impact and stress on the body, how many calories this can potentially burn, and the interference it has with muscle growth. And lastly, if you're looking to combine cardio with a lifting program, you should do the thing that you want to prioritize more first. This way you are fresh at the beginning of the workout and can push harder, whereas you'll be more fatigued as you get later and further into the workout. If your main goal is to build muscle, building strength, or improving body composition, then lift weights first. But if your main goal is to improve cardiovascular health and performance, then do your cardio first. If you don't have a preference, do the one that will be most demanding first. And that about covers everything I wanted to cover. Hope you enjoyed the video. Be sure to like the video if you actually liked it, subscribe for more, and I will catch you in the next one.